is up, creative athletes? It's Chris David G. I am here with Ross Yoshida, and welcome to another episode of the Creative Athlete podcast where creativity and athleticism collide. Today, we have an awesome special guest, Ashley Strauss, creative director with the Detroit Lions. What's up, guys?
Hey, it's good to see you guys. It's
What's
been a
up,
little
Ashley?
bit. Just right in the thick of season over here. So
Is it snowing yet?
No, it was 60 yesterday.
When does the snow come?
Who knows? It could snow in 10 minutes and then be 70 tomorrow. So that's
the
Michigan
opposite
weather
of
for you.
Houston. That's the opposite of Houston. Houston, it could be 100 degrees in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's we're probably not going to have many 60-degree days left here till spring. So
nice. Well, thanks for taking time and making some time in your lovely office there. I see you have. We were talking about the awesome memorabilia you have, but I repped my my Detroit Lions blue.
there you go.
Ross, looks like you're repping some Detroit there.
Got the Tigers hat.
Nice.
Did you get that in Detroit or did you just buy it?
No, it's just part of my collection. I didn't have any Lions gear, so
you didn't buy that in Detroit when we were together.
Ashley,
I thought you bought that in Detroit when we were together.
No, this is like vintage. This is like from 1993.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the older logo. I love it though.
I love the old logo.
We'll get you a Lions hat next summer. Don't worry.
Yes, we will.
All right. So which one's the original? Which one's the original Lions logo? Is it the? Do you have it back there? Is it the one with the two stripes and the old school lion?
So that the 90 Seasons logo that is a jersey patch this year that's based off of a logo we never wore on a uniform, but you'll see it on the 90 Seasons patch on the alternate helmet, like on that little Aiden bobblehead.
Yeah.
I think it's from the 50s. So kind of paying homage to that. And then we got the Bubbles lion over here on the helmet. That was like 90s. And then the modern, I don't know if I've got an example of it up there, but
yeah, everybody knows it though.
Streaks on them, like little squiggly.
Yeah. The big lion. So
yeah, I love it. It's so I don't know, it just kind of makes me feel like the Premier League is just beautiful. It's, and then y'all have such a, are y'all the only ones with this blue in the NFL? I want to say right?
Honolulu blue.
Is that what it's called? Blue. I heard you say that earlier.
Yeah, that's the official term of our blue Pantone. So It was meant to look like the waves of Honolulu is kind of where that phrase comes from.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, you automatically associate Honolulu with Detroit when it comes to the Lions. It's just funny like that. And don't be so humble. Didn't you design that 90th anniversary logo?
I did.
Let's go. Yeah.
Pretty exciting. It's they wear it on their jersey. It's on tequila bottles, Miller Lite packaging. It's on hats, shirts. It's pretty exciting to see it out in the wild.
Yeah, congrats on that. It's such a cool project to be trusted with. And 90 years is pretty intense. I don't know how old the oldest NFL team is, but that has to be up there, right?
Yeah, before we were the Lions, we were in Portsmouth, but our first season was in 1934. So
it's wild.
I just gotta say the on-field jersey patch club is a very exclusive club.
It's pretty cool to think when I'm long gone, my stamp will be on a part of the team's history forever. So,
I ain't gonna lie. I don't know why I don't think like that, but I don't. But I'm really, really proud of some of this stuff. That is definitely a good way to think about it.
Yeah,
I'm always thinking about it.
It's cemented in the history, so it's kind of cool.
So I'm always thinking about it. The archivist 50 years from now is gonna you have white gloves on and be handling the patch you designed.
You know what? Ross is a little biased because when you walk around the tunnels at Dodger Stadium, they have every commemorative patch probably printed out. It's like a 4 or 6 foot graphic on the wall, and it's beautiful because it's there's so many. But I have a feeling, Ross, that was your idea, and you're like, hey, let's put more of these.
Well, I can't say that I'm as humble as Ashley here. Ashley was gonna just let it go and not even mention that she designed that great patch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's
great
just
job
how I
on that.
operate, I guess. Flying
Speaking
under the
of
radar.
speaking of flying under
It's
the
that
radar,
Midwest modesty.
There you go, that's what it is.
so you where are you from originally?
I grew up in Trenton, Michigan, which
Okay.
is like a 20-minute drive south of Detroit. So, went to school there, went off to college at Eastern Michigan University, played softball there, coached softball after I graduated.
Oh, that's cool.
So this is definitely my hometown team over here.
Wow. So you grew up, like, just rooting for all the Detroit teams and going to all the
Mhm. Yep, yep.
so this is like
So,
a dream job.
That's cool.
yeah, it was funny when I got the job. It's been 5 years already, which is crazy, but, I've worked in sports so long and, my family and friends are invested and they'll ask questions, but then as soon as I got the job with the Lions, then it's like, "Who are they drafting? What's the team gonna look like?" I'm like, "I don't
Do
know,
you
you'll find out when everyone else does."
have you met Barry? Yeah, maybe that's a question you got.
Briefly, like a "Hi, how are you?" kinda thing.
No, no, no. I wasn't asking. I'm saying like because I used to always get.
Oh.
I'm saying that's probably what they ask you because I used to always get. Have you met Craig BJ? I'm like, no. He's like,
No, I the only times I ever interact with players is, like, media day.
yeah,
Otherwise, they have a job to do, I have a job to
yeah.
do. We're not,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's crazy. You grew up like a big Lions fan, and then now
Mhm.
you have to be pinching yourself like, "Oh, they're letting me make these decisions?" Like, I don't know, because like, Chris and I kinda have the same background. We worked or I still work for the teams we grew up rooting for, and it's just like, sometimes you kinda have to take a step back and be like, "Wow," like, I can't believe, like well, a good example is that patch, like, "Wow, I'm working on the 90th anniversary logo for the Detroit Lions." Like, that has to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty amazing to have that opportunity, and just to be a part of it, like, being a kid who would be so excited to get a poster or a giveaway item, and now being on the other end of being the team that gets to make those and help contribute to those memories for kids and fans is just a really unique perspective to be on that side of it.
and you know what? Speaking of unique, you're in the multi pro sport pro and college like I guess, club, as Ross put it earlier. Like you've gone the span between working for college, working for multiple teams in pro sports. You want to talk quickly about like you may have mentioned it just now, but kind of like your stops along the way. I don't know if you mentioned the
Yeah,
stops in like Tennessee and
um,
San Diego.
sure. So when I graduated with a BFA in graphic design, I had no idea what I was gonna do with it. Um, the roles we have now are not how they were back in
Oh
it was
yeah,
only like 2008, but so I stuck to softball. I was coaching a few years, and then I had an opportunity to go back and pursue my master's in sport management. So I was working in media relations in the athletics department at my alma mater. So it was a lot of like the PR stuff, game notes, handling
yep,
media, that kind of thing. And then I had to have an internship during that grad assistant stint. So I was a design intern for marketing at the same department. And,
nice.
like, this is before, like, Instagram and Twitter were what they're used for now for brands. Brands weren't leveraging them as
Yeah,
marketing tools,
it
but
was more like
The
news
stone
it was
ages.
like, yeah,
updates.
yeah. So a lot of the design stuff was, like, media guide covers, posters, a lot of print, advertising kinda thing. Um, and then I took my first full-time job at Indiana University in their athletics department. Started there in media relations, so I was an SID for, softball, volleyball, and field hockey, and then once they started to have a need for more design related, jobs, they shifted me over full-time into creative. So that's kinda what my first, like, full-time creative in sports was at IU. Uh, was there a few years and then had an opportunity to head down to Mississippi State University. It was around the time they were number 1 in the country. It was SEC football. Dak was there. Dak, Prescott
Oh yeah,
was there at the time, so there's a lot of really unique opportunities. So headed down to Starkville, I wasn't there long. I was there for like 11 months before the job at the Tennessee Titans opened up. When I took that job, they had never had an in-house designer before.
That's great.
That's
Everything was
crazy.
outsourced. So
That's not
I
even that long ago.
no, I think hold on, I have my let's see, what year was that? I got there in 2015.
Wow.
That's
So
insane.
I literally inherited a blank slate, which was cool. And they just let me take it and run with it. So I was there for 2 seasons, then jumped over to San Diego, joined the baseball world. And
NL West.
after yeah, West Coast. I miss those sunny days sometimes. Uh, I was there for just under 2 seasons. And then the opening in Detroit was there and I had to jump at it. So
Yeah.
got here in November of was it 5 years ago? November 2018. So it was 5
Wow.
years a month ago I've been here. So
And you have an
um
awesome team there. We were talking
yeah.
about that earlier. You got
Yeah,
like
give him a
incredible
shout out.
boss, incredible
Yeah,
team.
we've got Jeff Nguyen, who also has worked in other places in sports. Katie Quinlan, also former student athlete, softball player.
Oh,
Dom Varick, he's an extremely talented designer, and then Josh Manduano, who another former student athlete, uh, photographer, jack of all trades, designer. So really, really amazing team. Um, I've been fortunate to be given the ability to expand. When I got there, I had myself and one other person. Now it's myself and uh, 4 full timers, hoping
Awesome.
to expand even more. And just with the leadership that kind of gives me an opportunity to have a seat at the table and be invested in some high level projects. So really loving being here. The team's doing well right now. It's a very exciting time in Detroit. We've got the 2024 draft coming here in April. So that's going to be a ton of fun, obviously. And then in July, we will be seeing you guys
Let's
wow.
go.
for
Right.
MLC. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
That's
just wanna interject really quick and say that, you and Katie as former softball D1 softball players, I hope every day you thank your parents, and I hope every day you thank mom and dad for taking you to all your practices and coaching
Yeah.
and playing
for
catch with you. I
for
just
those
wanna
of
throw that
you
out there.
for those of you who don't know, Ross's oldest daughter is a softball collegiate athlete. So it sounds like he has a little bit of a personal issue with people who don't credit
Just
their
make sure you show that
Oh,
parents
of
for
appreciation every
everything.
course.
day, you know?
You don't think of it as a kid. You just like, "Oh, I'm showing up to this game and it's travel ball." You don't realize your parents paid to get you on a team and for hotel and travel
Uh,
and taking you to practice. Like, my friends have kids
Mhm.
now and they're like, "Wow, I didn't realize how much stuff my parents did for me." So, I'm definitely grateful and thankful that, uh
But good for all of you. It's just like, we have so many attendees at Connect that work for teams, but they're former athletes. Like they played collegiate sports, um, and I'm sure that regimen that you have to go through to be a top athlete has helped you in your career somehow.
Yeah, I think so. I think for me personally, just the the qualities that you have to have as as a student athlete or an athlete at any level is it translates well into like a leadership role. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to, you know, be organized, communicate, be
Time
dedicated.
management,
Yeah, time management, being able to handle stressful situations in a way that you don't necessarily let impact your team.
for sure.
So yeah, there's definitely some parallels between being a student athlete and being in this industry.
Hey, what speaking of, because like I just remember I played sports as well, not in college, but I just remember I was always the one that everyone went to for like anything creative. I used to like tattoos, do fake tattoos on
Mhm.
people's arms and give haircuts with logos and on there. So what was the like? Were you already seeing? Because I mean, you were studying it, but were you already seeing? Were you doing some things inside with your team or with your school, or like what were some of the first projects that you remember?
Um, like in undergrad, I would say I did a lot of like sport related projects. My professor was like, "Oh, we get it. You like sports." Um, like I did a shoe brand and I designed the packaging of the box it came in, the ads to promote it. So little did I know I was already on my way
That's so
uh
cool.
making that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then like obviously as a grad assistant I was making like the team's schedule posters and things. So and honestly when I left I still was like, how am I going to utilize this degree? Like, am I going to
Yeah.
go work at an agency or what? And then
Yeah.
just
Kinda
kind of
fell
fell
into it.
into it. Yeah. I like got into PR and then found a way to
That's a good
utilize it.
segue though. Were you using InDesign when you were there or no? You were just kind
Yeah.
of
The
yeah.
media guides with InDesign and
I
Oh,
love InDesign.
yeah.
like every page,
You know what? I believe that like
500 pages.
every
Mhm.
designer should have to design a publication before they
Yes.
go to the next level. It's a
You
good
know
way
what?
to
Yeah, that should be like a
Luckily,
boss you have to get
we don't
by.
yeah, luckily we don't really have many of those projects come our way anymore, but they're
yeah.
still there. We still have a few.
Mhm.
And and then I know we were talking earlier about logos and the 90th logo, something that Ross brought up as we were talking about this podcast that you actually won if you haven't been to Connect, which I think most people have, but there's a tradition of logo versus logo. It's a
Mhm.
design competition, a speed logo competition. And
Yeah.
actually, what year was that? It was 2019. You
It
took
was in
first place.
Atlanta.
Yeah,
I
it
got
was
2nd
2019.
place, I
Oh,
think.
you did? Oh, you got a pretty
Yeah.
rad prize for second
I won
place.
it I think I got a PS4, I think,
Yeah,
Yes,
it was like
and the
they were hard to
controller.
get.
and a controller, which is still I use at my I have a finished basement, that's what I use to watch TV down there, so it's
Oh,
still
look at that.
going.
Oh, that's so great.
That was fun. I tell everybody who like every year when we were in that, I'm like, it's such a good way to just meet people, have fun. I'm like, this is not anything
Mhm.
serious. We give away some cool prizes, but it's just more of just like, you show up to a field, you throw the football around, you're at a basketball court, you shoot around, you're with designers, design some logos. Why not? So anyway, that was funny.
Yeah.
Ross,
No, it's always a good time.
and
Yeah,
speaking of,
it is nerve-wracking, and I understand that. Like, you have to design a logo in, like, 5 minutes, and
Yeah,
everyone can
it's
see your work, basically. There's no process. You're just, you know, throwing stuff against a wall for, like,
mhm.
5 minutes, and everyone's watching you, and it's nerve-wracking. Like, we've had people sign up and back out, and
yeah,
people, like, are watching round 1, they're like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna do this anymore." But, so it takes some, courage to actually participate,
it,
even if you don't win anything, it's
Yeah,
just
you just gotta approach
participating.
it like, "I have nothing to lose, this is fun. See
yeah.
what we come up with, if it's a dud, it's a dud."
There's
That's a great
definitely a little liquid courage involved as well.
Yeah,
Um, but
there's always that.
speaking of the conference, we did want to ask you as well. Just what are some of your memories? Because I mean, you've attended more than a few times. I mean, of course, it's going to be in your backyard. Many thanks to you. In 2024. But just what are some of the things that you would say like that you've some things, cool things that have come out of attending?
How many
I th
connects have you attended?
uh, 3? I don't
3.
know.
A veteran. I
Yeah,
think 3 with 3 different teams, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. I never thought
That
about that.
might be the
This'll
record.
be my 4th with a 4th team.
We're gonna have to take a survey.
That might be
I
let
might
me
be in the lead here.
that
It's
might be
gonna
the
be
record. That's cool, that's so awesome, though, and,
Yeah,
we
I
appreciate
mean,
that support.
It says
it's
a lot, but yeah, and I was just curious, like, what are some of the things, maybe just some takeaways that you've had, along the way?
I think just the friendships I've gained. I mean, I've met so many people in the industry. It's just nice to level with somebody who gets what you deal with on the day to day,
Yeah,
to bounce ideas. Like it's like one big therapy session, honestly. Like the speakers are great. I've
definitely.
taken away a lot of things. I've met a lot of illustrators like Robzilla. We used him, I forget what year it was. He did some illustrations for us, but really
Oh,
it's
wow.
just like the relationships you build and the network um that it provides. I mean, I'm sure there's people here who have been considered for jobs based on relationships they've made at the conference, and I just have like friends who I'm invested in, like I
Yeah.
root for them and check in on see how they're doing and hoping their families are well. Just, beyond our jobs, just the people um has been the biggest takeaway
Yeah.
from being there.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, we work in such a unique space,
Mhm.
and you know, I don't know about any of y'all, but I don't really even like tell my own wife about some of the things I have to go through on a daily basis because it's like not that I'm hiding anything, but it's just like I don't think she'll get it, you know?
I mean,
Um,
it is. Sports is a 24/7 business. Like,
right.
at any given time, somebody could text you or call you and be like, "This just happened and we need something done."
Oh,
And you have to be able
So,
to accommodate that.
you know
So,
what?
it's different.
You know what?
yeah, but
I want your take on this because I'm a big if you if you follow me at all, you know, or I'm sorry, not follow me. If you know me well enough, you know that I constantly like just evangelize about this topic. But like, I just believe, you know, the creative department, the creative team, and this, you know, extends to video, photo, etc. You know, I personally think it's like a mission critical department in the organization, and I always tell people this because you have to really be in the weeds to understand. But when the stuff goes down, when like you just said, you get a phone call, or it's you know the owner is making a decision, or any like drastic massive communication situation, creative is like one of the, if not maybe the second phone call. Maybe it's not the first, but it's like the second. You cannot in this day and age, you cannot go out without having some visual communication. So I just kind of wanted you to speak on that, like maybe a situation you're in, or
Sure.
you know, I'm sure you're aligned with that. But is there like you know your experience with that? Because it sounds like you do get those phone calls.
I can give you an example. Last season, we had the excuse me, trade deadline looming. We had a home game on Sunday. We traded our starting tight end on a Tuesday before. He was on several signs in the stadium, including the huge main atrium
Oh
glass
yeah,
sign.
it's beautiful.
So as soon as
oh,
that
that thing's
happened, I'm
huge.
like, okay, where is he located? I was calling vendors. I was prepping files to send out as soon as possible. And like, luckily, we got them printed and installed right before the day before that Sunday game. So we had to pull stuff off shelves. You just don't think about how one little
Yeah,
thing can have a trickle effect in various departments and areas. So that's a good example. But, in saying that, I'm fortunate that I have a pretty significant size team where if I go on vacation, I'm just like, hey guys, here's some things I'm working on. If it comes up, here's my working files.
ooh, love that.
And they handle it. If they wanna go on vacation, likewise, like,
Mhm.
I'm in the trenches with them. I would never ask them to do something I wouldn't be willing to do. We're people, we have lives outside of work. If you wanna take a vacation, if you got a wedding, if you got a kid's recital, by all means, go take care of it. That's why we're a team, so, you know,
Yeah,
despite
it's,
that 24/7 type of grind, like, there's balance in that.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. So, building that team is vital.
Mhm.
And you've ascended from the lowest levels in the industry to now creative director. And it's, Chris will tell you the same thing, as we've moved up, they didn't teach us any of this in school. Connect is a great way to kind of bounce ideas and off other people and talk to other folks in leadership, because there's so much we just didn't learn, and we're constantly learning how to be leaders every day. And we just talked about this. I just talked about this with my team because I had someone go on vacation, and I had gone on vacation, believe it or not, during the season for a week last season. And there's this thing like where people want to have job security, so they kind of hold things close to the chest, so they're one of the only people that know how to do it. And I'm like, in what we do, we can't do that. We kind of have to. I've set it up to where, like, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, our department's gonna keep flowing. That way it's kinda morbid to think of it that way, but, these are the conversations you kinda have at Connect by meeting, these different people in leadership and these things that we didn't learn in school per se, we could at least kinda have that sounding board, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think when you think about, like, managing a budget, managing people, project management, dealing with external vendors, there's a lot of things outside of the actual creative that are part of your day to day.
Mhm.
Even more so than actually creating for me, I'm barely making much anything. I have a very talented team who, is taking the brunt of that, but yeah, I think just meeting people I still remember a conversation I had with somebody, um, at the last conference I went to about project management and, like, "Do you have a project manager? What are the pros and cons? What software do you use?" Those kinda conversations that I took from that, I implemented here, so now we've got a project management system, hopefully getting a project manager here, an actual person, in the next few seasons, so, um, for sure. There's a lot, that you you don't learn in school about it, so
Yeah. Um, I wanna hit on this real quick because you're one of the folks that has worked in pro sports and has worked at the collegiate level as well. I mean, big time collegiate. I'm talking SEC, like you said, MSU was ranked number one while you were there. What are some of the differences between the workflow of pro sports and college?
I would say the biggest difference between college and professional sports obviously, I haven't worked in college sports in quite a while, but, you know, I'll give you an example, baseball, you have a Tuesday 1 o'clock game, you're not necessarily selling the game, you're selling the experience to get people to go to the game. Um, it's a lot of sales initiatives, you have a lot of, external partners you work with, so a lot of co-branded elements and experiences that you work on. Um, you're selling more so, uh, you know, elevated experiences at the games, suites,
Mm,
on-field passes, and obviously you're talking about the team itself, the players, the story. I'd say on the college side, recruiting is a huge piece of it.
mhm,
Probably its own entire arm in the branding world in college, aside from the overall marketing department.
mm,
And I think too with like, we didn't have NIL when I was there, so that's a whole new adventure I'm sure that creatives are navigating through right now with the student athletes likeness.
yeah, I'm sure.
And I think it's just a different vibe. Like going to a college football game just has a different feel than like a professional football game. Um,
Yeah.
you feel like at least for me, like in Starkville, I'd go to a game and you'd feel like almost the tradition and you have alumni and people who went to the school. So the ownership is there on both sides. It's just a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
I always thought,
it makes a ton of sense.
yeah, and I always thought like, man, depending on what role you're in at the collegiate level, I mean, you could have multiple sports too, right? Like not
mhm.
just focus on like football or basketball.
Yeah, definitely. When I
Um,
was there, it was for the whole athletics department, and then
Ooh,
they had somebody just for football. So you're dealing with when you have
man, that's a
crossover
lot of
season,
sports.
you've
That could
got
be like 30 sports.
yeah, some schools do. So one of the challenges there is just, if you have an overarching story that you want to tell about your school's brand, it has to make sense for every sport, and every coach has a different opinion.
yeah.
Every sport has a different demographic or different style. So that's just the challenge in how to lace that all together under one, brand umbrella.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question since you're in a position of, management and um, I kind of heard you say, alluding to you guys might end up expanding your team later down the line, but let's just say you were. And I know folks who listen or watch or both this podcast are up and kind of across that whole spectrum. What are aside from the talent, right? Because I feel like if you're talented, you have an interview. If you made the interview, you're talented. I guess that's what I was trying to say. But what are some of the other things that you look for, like the two or three things that if you want to work, for a team, your team specifically, that you feel like you've embedded into your culture there and that you look for?
I think somebody who's just an overall good person to work with. Nobody wants to work with a jerk. Leave your ego at the door. You're here because 'cause you're talented. We don't need to have you remind us of just how talented you are every day. Uh,
And we've
but
all worked with a
honestly,
few of those.
I mean, yeah, but really just like a really good person, somebody who knows how to communicate, uh, with different types of people. Like, I can't talk design speak with somebody. I'm gonna make an example in operations. They may not understand what I'm saying, so being able to learn to communicate with every department and understand their business objectives, what their needs are,
Yeah.
and how you can provide a solution for
Your
those
internal
needs.
clients.
Yes, it's exactly that. Like, you're still an agency, but you're an in-house and you
That's
have
right.
your clients are other departments. So,
Yeah.
somebody who kind of understands the scope of that and what that entails, somebody who's organized, reliable, um, somebody, that you can just trust. And I know that takes you can't really necessarily build that right off of an interview, but, um, somebody who just, if I go on vacation, I know that if there's something that comes up, they're gonna be there to pick it up, and if they go out, I'm there for them. So,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
teammate, good people, good communicator, to summarize.
And do you like to have some of your staff like interview that person too?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
like
because they're gonna be working with them too, so when we get to a certain stage, I'll make sure that I get feedback from my team and make sure that they feel comfortable with the decision we make. If they had any concerns, I take that into consideration as well, so wanna make sure that the whole group is happy.
um I think I've told this story before, which by the way, those are so great because I feel like sometimes people get so caught up in the portfolio and I'm like, don't get me wrong, you need to know that stuff.
Of
But
course.
at the end of the day, when you work on a team, I mean, communicate all the things that you just said are so important. And you do have, a short window to communicate that in a interview. But at the same time, I would say reputation goes a long way, right? Like we
Mhm.
could pick up the phone and call, one or two people and just get that reputation real quick. Um,
It's a small
yeah,
world. It's like,
yeah.
I
You
could
just
probably find out about somebody through 2 phone calls somehow.
Mm.
Yeah, and it just makes me like I always say, hey, like never take for granted who you're working with, who you're working for. Like it could be a small project, but for them it's a huge project, and that person could, be the person that gets a call and say, yeah, they treated my project like it was the annual campaign. Yeah, love working with them. Okay, cool. That's all I needed to hear. Um, that's good. No, I was gonna tell a funny story. I remember one time I hired someone. This was a long time ago, and it was not a full time role. It was like a paid internship, and but it was important. It was an important role. It just wasn't like I said, like a full time. And and I hired her, and I just saw the work, and we were kind of needing someone to jump right in, and I just remember the first day. um, I asked her to open up Photoshop. I was trying to teach her something, and she was like, "What's Photoshop?" And I was just like, What do you mean?" And, she was like, "Yeah, I've never used Photoshop." I was like, "Well, how did you create all your stuff in your portfolio?" And she had like used other programs. So I always laugh. And like, especially with this day and age where there's so much, there's CapCut, there's Canva. I'm like,
Yeah.
make sure you ask about like the tools and, how did they create? Cause I always think like, if you could communicate how you created things in an interview, you can show that you're humble because of the way you speak about it. You can show your technical skill, the way you speak about it, and communication, the way you speak about it. So it's just something I when you mentioned everything you said, I thought about it. That was a funny story. That was a horror story, actually.
No, I've
But
had instances like a candidate will have an amazing portfolio, and I'll look and see where they worked, and I'll contact, somebody who worked there, and they're like, "Oh, they didn't make that." Like,
Oh,
they edited the text, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks,
That's
production
great.
work." So,
That's great.
um,
mm,
yeah, always check references if you're unsure.
That's
yeah, I
good.
think we've all kinda learned that the hard way.
Hey,
It's part of the growth process when you're
Yeah.
in a leadership role, so
and I also feel like when, in this day and age, you do have to skip around. I think a lot, well, I don't want to use the term skip around, but you just have to be, aggressive on what you're going after. And I think y- sometimes it's looked at as like, well, I'm just here for a moment. I'm trying to get that other gig. Like, um, man, I just, that reputation equity is, I guess, what I would refer to it as. Um, Let me ask one more other question, and I'll let Ross jump in. But um, just because I know you're in a unique role, and we've met, some folks on your team, and we know a little bit about what's going on with Detroit, as far as the club, because we're friends, and you've talked to us about some of the projects. But what are some of the things now that you spend your day to day on, and that you really, you get excited about, whether it's like budgets or renovations with the stadium, anything. Like, what are some of the things? Just because I know, like I said, you guys are in a transition period and doing some really cool stuff.
I think for me, just watching my team succeed, seeing their victories and their wins, um,
That's good.
without like, just on their own, and seeing them take initiative and be proud of the work that they're making makes me feel good. Um, you know, we developed our campaign the last 2 years all in-house, so
Awesome.
all of
That's
the visual
huge.
elements, the storytelling, and that trickles over too to, like, our One Pride Productions team, who's a very talented,
For sure.
video crew over there, they're a huge part of that. So just, um, with my team in particular, our designers, photographers, just being able to watch them grow, provide them opportunities, to do that, and, just being able to step back and let them shine is kind of what I've been enjoying the most in this role here.
Yeah. That's such
That's
a
awesome.
humble thing to say, an amazing characteristic of a good leader is just because it does it for me. It's one of the biggest transition hurdles. It's, you
Mhm.
know what, I could maybe perhaps make it better, but not at this level. Like, some of these designers, and they could be the same age as us, or it's just, they just have such a unique style, and it's I've recently wrote a creative brief, and I was like, you know what? I really don't need to get that detailed. I just need to say, here's the goal. Here's what we want to do. Do your thing. That's it's kind of that. I don't know if it's for everyone, but it's a moment in your career where you have to say, all right, I got a team, and we trust each other. And if they get a jam, I could help them. But
Yeah.
you got to kind of go with what they've shown. And it sounds like, I mean, you guys just do so much work. I remember we were running around the stadium a couple years ago, and you showing us around. It was just like, um, there's just, it's a canvas. The stadium is, well, the whole city was just amazing. And that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to go to Detroit. For one, we had a good friend there,
Oh,
um, but for two, when we visited it, it was just so different from I had never been, but it was
mhm.
just, I mean, it was like, I love that the stadiums are real close, so you get this like kind of sports district vibe. The weather was really well for me. We're down in Texas, so we like being cold. It was beautiful. And but yeah, just talk. I know, Ross, you wanted to ask a few things about Detroit, and just fun facts about Ford Field.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Ashley, we definitely wanna give you a chance to gas up your hometown.
That's a good way to
Um,
put it.
you know, Chris is alluding to it when, we were supposed to have Connect at Ford Field in 2020, and obviously the world got turned upside down a little
Yeah.
bit. It was actually on track to be our biggest Connect ever, even bigger than Atlanta. Um, and we were so excited to be there, after our site visit. I know we had that spot picked out where we're gonna be overlooking the field.
Yeah,
It's such a great venue, indoor venue. But there's just staying in downtown Detroit. I didn't have any expectations. Because I had never been to Detroit myself either. But wow, it's just a cool vibe. I mean, downtown Detroit is so cool. There was a lot of construction going on, a lot of cool little coffee shops and restaurants, which we'll ask you about in a minute. Great hotels. Just a cool like, and what I wasn't expecting, it was very walkable
Mhm.
downtown. It was you know, just not something a big city usually has.
It's
I'm gonna first before we get into that though, I want to get back into football really quick, Ashley.
'Kay.
You know, I don't want to not mention that the Lions are having a great season, and I know we can't, you know, us as creatives, and we can't control what goes on the field or court or ice. Um, you know, we kind of, you know, have to take a back seat to the team when it comes to that. But that said, the Lions are having a great season. They just beat my Chargers. Um, are you excited to maybe possibly, and I don't want to jinx it, but you know, are you getting prepared for playoffs or anything like that? Doing you got something special in mind, or you just got some different projects in the works?
Yeah, we have done really well so far, but as coach would probably echo the same sentiment, there's still a lot of work we can do. So we're gonna continue rolling through the year. From my perspective, it's been a blast. The energy in the building has been tremendous. Our fans are incredibly passionate. Um, I have never heard a stadium as loud as I have in Ford Field. If you've ever get a chance to watch it on TV, you will hear our fans. Um, just being a part of that ride has been fun. Some of the projects and opportunities that has lent to us has been really really cool. Um, and then just like the city overall has just been growing, and there's so many positive things coming. I know we talked about the draft will be held in downtown Detroit in April. We're really excited to showcase our city to the world for that. Um, like you said, we've got, 4 professional sports teams all within city blocks of each other, like, Comerica Park is literally across the street. I could be standing in Ford Field and look out a window and see the game going on, it's that close.
oh,
And
that's
then we've
cool.
Yeah,
got, Little Caesars Arena, which is, about a block away where the Pistons and Red Wings play. So, you've got your 4 major sports teams all right there. There's bars,
That's so rare.
restaurants, we've got, like, cool parks in the city. We've actually got, like, tonight, for instance, we have our Bye Bye Barry Amazon Prime world premiere at the Fox Theater, which is an incredibly beautiful building right by the stadium. And then
it
after
is.
that, later tonight is our tree lighting, which is down in Campus Marshes, which there's an ice rink, a giant tree. There's tons of people that go down for that. Um, you continue down the way, we have one of the nicest river walks in the country. It goes along the Detroit River. You get views of our friends in Canada across on the other side. So there's definitely the international tie in there too. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of momentum right now in the Motor City. Not to make
That's awesome.
puns, but yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you mentioned
oh,
that
go ahead.
Fox Theater, and like on our site visit, we did take pictures of that. The architecture in downtown Detroit is just beautiful.
Yeah, a
Um,
lot of Art Deco vibes going on. There's some
yeah,
really beautiful buildings down there. Like, you just
um,
walk down Woodward and look up, and it's just incredible.
yeah, and then I know, like you know, we got to see like the Ford Field and Comerica Park being like literally right next to each other. In fact, if you play MLB the Show, if you play the
You can see
Tigers,
Ford
you can
Field.
see Ford Field like
Yep.
right in there in left field. Um, but yeah, it's just so cool to have that kind of juxtaposition of the big teams, and then the hockey and the basketball teams so close. So we did take a tour of Little Caesars. I mean, they have a full like hockey rink like underneath, like
Mhm.
underground. I mean, it's like state of the art. Um, so yeah, I mean, Detroit is just a super cool place. I was going to ask you to give us like a fun fact about Ford Field, um, but I'm going to steal one from you because I think it was so interesting. I didn't know this. As big of a sports fan as I am, I didn't realize that Ford Field was built around like an old building. So I don't know if you could explain that to us, or it's kind of almost like how
There's a
San Diego
building.
did Petco Park.
Yeah, there's a building that was original to the area that's inside of Ford Field that houses some office space in there. Um, you can see some of the brick facade when you're on the opposite end of the field,
Right.
so yeah,
That was so
Um,
but
cool.
this is gonna sound ridiculous, but when we were there, um, I think y'all call it like a mover train, and it's like
the
above
people
ground.
mover. Yeah.
Man, that thing, I felt like I was like in, like in the future, like the Jetsons or something, where that's an old school cartoon. If you don't know, don't look it up. But it's just uh, like, is that like, does that go all over the city, or because that to me, I was like, okay, that's cool because we have a
It
train.
goes through
It's on the
parts of
ground.
downtown. It was pretty heavily used when, Joe Louis Arena was there. That was a former uh, arena for the Red Wings,
Mhm.
but they're now over at LCA. And then we've got the Q line, which goes up and down Woodward from, like, Midtown to downtown. So you can hop on that and get around. I mean, we got scooters, we've got everything, and it's like you said, it's really walkable. Um, it's just a fun
Yeah.
place, and if you've never been, I'm sure there'd be a lot of people that will walk away, especially, like, from the conference, that'll walk away and be like, "Oh, okay, not what I thought," in a good way.
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah.
think so too.
Yeah, that was my number one like takeaway was, and then just how close it is to everything else. Like, again,
Mhm.
definitely embarrassing to say, but I didn't realize y'all were so close to Canada. It was like literally right there. So I didn't know
And
that.
it's weird, like, you have to
Bring
go,
your
like,
passport.
down, right? You have to go, like, down to go to Canada or
Yeah,
south,
we're actually the
like,
city of
it
Detroit
doesn't make sense
is
to me.
actually north of Windsor.
That's insane.
Yes.
Like, it comes out like, it's just if you look at a map, there's a fun fact for you. Detroit is north of Canada, parts of
Dude.
Canada.
Hey, you know what? You may have just created something. We might have to do like a pub crawl, an international pub crawl. Bring your passport.
Yeah.
Oh man. Um, all right, what else we got? We wrote down a lot of stuff for you and I don't wanna miss anything. Um, let's
Well,
talk a little.
how about you give us, it doesn't have to be around the stadium, but, people might come in a day early or they might stay an extra day. What are some spots that people have to hit? Like,
Ooh,
where
good.
is, like, w like, what are a couple, like, restaurants or coffee spots or
Okay.
just landmarks that people need to go to?
So landmarks, I'd say go check out the Spirit of Detroit, and the Joe Louis Fist. They're both sculptures,
Oh, yeah.
downtown. There's the, DeQuinder Cut has a ton of murals.
I like
If
that.
you wanna get a bike and ride around, it's a cool place. Eastern Market is one of the oldest farmers markets, in the country, I believe. Lots of
Oh,
cool stuff going on there. Um, if there's a baseball game, check out Comerica. I haven't looked at their
Oh,
schedule. I don't know if the
that's
schedule,
true.
came out
They'll
yet.
they'll be it'll be during the all-star break, so I don't think they'll be doing anything. But you can check
Okay.
out the stadium. Definitely walk around the stadium.
This is a little outside of downtown. It's in a city called Hamtramck, but there's a game called Foaling. Not sure if you guys have heard of it. It is a mashup of bowling and football. So
oh god.
you're standing at opposite ends with 10 pins set up and you throw a football to knock them down. There's a huge warehouse. I'll send you guys a link after this. It's really cool.
Bowling.
Um, Food-wise, I mean, you gotta get
Well,
some Detroit style pizza. It's not the same as Chicago style. It's
Okay, what's the difference?
better. Um, it's
oh,
like a
go on,
pan
get some
it's
people mad. Tell them it's the
okay,
best.
if have you guys have ever had Jets pizza? Like pan pizza?
Well, we've
I
had
don't know if you have
Chicago
Jets out
pizza.
there.
I don't
It's
remember
it's
Jets.
less like pie-like. It's like a pan pizza. It's got,
Oh,
like, crunchy on the outside crust,
Oh
but soft
yeah.
on the inside. It's
Oh yeah.
delicious. Coney dogs, obviously. There's a Lafayette versus American. It's these 2 restaurants next to each other downtown. They've always had a little rivalry of who has the
oh, I
better
love these, like,
Conies.
food rivalries.
Yeah. So those are some staples, and obviously we have a ton of really nice restaurants, bars, depending on how much you wanna spend. If you wanna indulge on, like, a really good steak, go to Prime and Proper.
Mm.
Um, get
Alright,
the
Chris,
Wagyu
we're going
steak,
there.
delicious. Bring your wallet. Um, coffee spots, uh
like, what do they call them? Dive bars. Any spots you like? It doesn't have to be in the downtown
so
area, but, like,
there's
I
a
know in
cool
Houston,
bar
there's a
that,
few places that I would recommend. Yeah.
I
It
think
doesn't
it's
have
the
to be in
oldest
downtown.
bar in Detroit. I think
Ooh.
it's Jacoby's. It's like a German bar. It's a I wouldn't say it's divey because it's kinda cool in there, it's just
Yeah.
old.
Oh,
That's really fun. There's a place called The Brakeman, that's a newer place, it's a good spot. There's a few rooftop bars. The names are, escaping me right now. Um,
I know. We went to a couple dive bars when we were there, Chris, but I don't remember where they
Mm,
were.
yeah. It's all a blur.
yeah. There's a lot to do.
Here's something I wanted to ask you. Um, because you have one of the best photographers and photography teams in NFL. You guys use photography for so much beyond like what's on happening on the field.
Mhm.
But how's that changed the game for you? You know, because yeah, you guys crush it. The photography and the storytelling y'all do is just if you have a chance, take a look at the Lions feed. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
But
Lions
just
Photog on Instagram. It's run by Jeff Nguyen, our team photographer, and, Josh Manduano, who also shoots for us. We also have a team of freelance that we employ for various events too, who are also incredibly talented, but,
yeah, how's that
it's
changed the game for you guys? Because you
it's
really built that
definitely
out, right?
yeah, it's provided a lot more opportunity for us, like, I'm wearing a shirt we did a Simplified collab.
Love
They're
that.
a local shirt, printing company. Being able to do retail photography, lifestyle photography, and having that all controlled in-house, we don't have to outsource that has been a huge help, mainly because you build a rapport with players and develop a trust level with them and coaching staff, and, um, that obviously lends into, accessibility. So, yeah, it's just, being able to have that tool in our arsenal to help storytell our game days, various experiences, highlight spaces in the stadium, all of it. It's really, really been a huge, huge addition to
Isn't
bring
it
Jeff on board.
isn't it crazy like how um I remember probably gonna upset some people here too, but I had to fight to move photography to creative. They were historically under the PR team. It was ridiculous. I was just like, guys, we do so much photography. All you guys need is a couple, images, action shots. And don't get me wrong, no offense to PR teams. Some of my best friends are on those, still working in those departments. But it was just a battle, and it was like, look, like part of. I'm a big believer that some designs are only as good as the photography as you get, as
Mhm.
the
Oh,
photography
yeah.
you get. And I just remember going through a period where it was just par. No offense to anyone, and we ended up, finding some amazing talent and friends that we probably all know, um, but it just changed the game, like having amazing photography, and then we went to, very uh, let's just call it Photoshop based designs that moved to illustrations over a period of time, and then illustration became like our secret weapon, right? It was like didn't even have to be pixels; it could be vector, the whole dang project. And then motion came in, and so just talk to me a little bit about like some of the things that like when you guys put together a composition or a special project, how do you decipher like what goes where, and as far as disciplines?
I think, well, the initial start is when you build your team, you're bringing in people who aren't all fitting in one particular silo. I wouldn't be able to do much if I just had 4 illustrators
Yeah.
on my team. So having variety and skill sets has been, um, really helpful. I mean, you got Jeff with the photography. Josh is a really talented artist. He can paint and draw anything. Dom is extremely keen eye to design. Katie is somebody who can really step in into any area. She's kind of like the jack of all trades as well. Um, So I think being able to lean into those skill sets in where they're appropriate for building out a campaign. Um, I lost the question, Chris.
Just like how do you like for me, um, it was I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is in your case, but kind of how you were saying when you came on board or when you started with the team, it was so design Photoshop, like could do everything, right? But then it was like, oh, now we have photography and now we have someone that can illustrate really well. Like I remember we hired an illustrator, period. She didn't even touch Photoshop. And that was a huge risk.
Mhm,
Well, I don't want to say risk. It was risk for the company, but it wasn't a risk for me because I knew like we were good. We had enough designers. I needed an illustrator. We needed so many things done. And we knew that we were wanting to then bring on a motion, person. So I was just curious how like when a project comes in, um, if there's a rationale in your head to say, you know what, we don't even need to design this. Let's just make this a photo campaign.
mhm.
Or, you know what, this can be an illustration campaign. We don't need to, create a Photoshop kind of artboard. Let's just go straight into illustration and video. I'm just curious, like how those projects, come in. Do you usually provide that vision, or is it kind of like, is it a shared meeting where people pick their projects, or just curious on how you disseminate stuff?
I think it depends on what the end goal is. Like, if it's capturing a beautiful moment, I think a photograph can't be topped. I think if it's telling the right story, you obviously lean that way. If it's a keepsake or an art piece or a commemorative item, illustration, would make sense. If it's something highlighting a stat, uh, more of like a campaign driven graphic or maybe game presentation type elements, obviously design in Photoshop probably makes more sense, motion design. So I think it just depends on the end use that kind of pushes us in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And then obviously when we meet as a team, we talk about ideas and we brainstorm and we're like, how would this look in this format? Or how would this look if we did it this way? So sometimes that just happens organically based on those discussions.
Okay. One more another follow-up question. These are
Mhm.
two like quick ones. So how often, if you don't mind me asking, how often do you meet with like the collective creative team?
Mhm.
And then how often do you meet with like upper management?
So we meet once a week. Some meetings are 10 minutes, some are, a much longer just depending on what's on our plate coming up. Then I do one-on-one meetings with each person on my team just to check in, see, if there's any areas I can help, if there's anything new they want to try, work on,
Love it.
how's life. And then I meet once a week with my supervisor, who's our senior vice president of brand and marketing. It's Emily Griffin, who's
Oh yeah.
amazing. So,
Yeah.
Shout out
you guys
Emily.
met her, yeah. She's wonderful. So definitely always in touch. We talk on Slack all the time. Um, and then we manage projects through Asana. So that's where all of our traffic is with other departments and making sure everything's going out the door on time. But yeah, we're in constant communication. Our offices are all right next to each other, so um, we're pretty tight.
Okay. That's good.
Cool.
I mean, not that there's any wrong or right, but I'm just glad to hear like um, communication is just like not something you guys are worried about. Just because I know it's been it's been funny. We've asked that to quite a few people, and sometimes it's like, well, we never meet, with the leadership, or they really don't know what we do. And I'm not saying anyone specific, but in general, it's like, well, we don't really talk as a team. We just get assignments, and I'm just like, that's so crazy. I mean, as a collective team, don't you want to know who's working on what? And wouldn't you want to step in and say, hey, I could take that over? Or, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to just be focused on what you're doing, versus, I mean, you said it earlier. I don't know how you phrased it, but you're like, it's really interesting to see how people take initiative, like, what did you mean by that?
Um, so, like, if there's open projects, people are just taking them and running with it. If there's not a complete creative brief, they go directly to the person and clarify information, so I don't have to, like, hold their hand and say, "Hey, guys, this is due Tuesday. Where are you at on this?"
Yeah.
Like, they got it, and um have a good rapport with people, other departments in the front office. So that's kind of what I meant by initiative is just taking things, going with it, and taking ownership of what they're working on.
Yeah. No, that's so
You got a
good.
strong team there.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
what
they're
we
great.
do,
I'm very lucky.
a lot of well, it says a lot about your ability to hire great people, um, and the culture that you're building there. I mean, that just um, it really does say a lot. I could tell the way you speak about the team, and the lack of credit you give yourself. Because I will say, when people ask, you know, about folks we know in the industry, you're at the top of my list. I'm always shouting you out without you even knowing. Just like, yeah, Ashley Strauss kills it. You should connect with her. She's worked for multiple sports. She's a good leader. We've had a chance to sit down and talk shop a lot, which is why we like doing this podcast, because I think it's just interesting. I mean, for one, to tell your story, that everyone loves that, to hear that. um, but just to hear how you think, I think that's really important. And I could tell, just the way you guys are operating sounds great. And I know no team's perfect, but I think it's always interesting for folks to hear, and just be able to take back and say, hey, we need to meet. I mean, there was a period where we didn't meet. As my team was, I would say, medium sized, and we're just so in the weeds.
Yeah.
Like, you see it in the list, you take it off, everyone knows what they're doing. And one on ones is huge. I'm sure there's a lot of like mentoring that happens in those one on ones. That's not that is not specifically you know related to creativity, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just an opportunity to pick their brains and see like, hey, what are your career goals? Do you want to be an art director, a creative director? Do you enjoy just making things? Like,
Yeah.
is there something you want to try? Um, like Dom a couple years ago, I was like, "Hey, you want to make the Gate A glass artwork?" And it was like this large scale um stadium signage, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to do it." And he had never done something of that scale before. So, and then like Katie, we had like a retail collaboration. She was designing shirts and stuff, and that was something new for her. Um, so just trying to find opportunities to help continue allowing them to grow and so they're not getting stale,
Yeah.
and bored. I know it can get very mundane, as we know.
Hey,
Um
Ashley, I just to touch on that and just touch on some earlier conversations,
Mhm.
we some earlier things we touched on earlier in this conversation. Um, and this is something I like to ask all of our creative leaders is, when we go to school, we're going to become a graphic designer or a motion designer or photographer or whatnot. And, we want to become really great in that space. And, you definitely, you know, Ashley, everyone knows that you are a great designer. But as you move up, you kind of, we do less and less creative,
Mhm.
right? Like as you kind of move up that ladder, it's just a natural progression to do less. I mean, we're signing off on timesheets and going into budget meetings and all
Yep.
this non-creative stuff. Even as you get the creative director title, kind of, we know how great you are. Your stuff is all over Behance and other corners of the internet, so everyone knows what a great designer you are. So, how do you kind of come to terms with that? You mentioned, the excitement of doling out projects and kind of seeing your team, I guess, quote unquote, graduate to these, like the Gate A signage you were talking about. And it is always great to see them be excited about that, about, taking on a new challenge and meeting it. But how do you kind of come to terms with, your creative work coming down and then your administrative going like this, and
Yeah.
you're like meeting after meeting?
It was a
It's just an
it was
interesting
a
question I
weird
like to ask.
transition at first. Like I remember just being like, go, go, go with design. I was like
Right.
at a few places the only one there. So transitioning on to this side of it has been at first it was hard because there's all these cool things coming in and I'm like, "Oh, I really wanna work on that one," but I'm like, "Okay, I gotta delegate, let my team do this." Um, I just find moments where I can use, my creativity. I mean, there's opportunities like we talked about the 90 Seasons logo, I got to sit on that and then just More of like the campaign-based stuff, developing toolkits for the design team to use, explaining the rationale and the story behind the elements and why we chose them. So there's still ways indirectly that I'm being a creative. So I don't know. I just try to find those moments, and then just having the conversations and workshopping with my team too uh, is another area where I try to open up Photoshop and work on stuff. But yeah, it's different. But I like it. I really am enjoying being at this stage in my career.
It's
Great answer. I will say that, like, opening Photoshop or Illustrator or InDesign is it's like going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't
I say
use
it's
it
like riding a bike. You're like, "Oh, shoot. Okay, I remember how to do this."
kind of, but at the same time, I almost feel like I lose, like, my touch a
Mhm.
little bit if I don't open it up in a while, so
Well, I can tell you that my team, they're far better designers than I ever was. So, like, it's kinda crazy just to sit back and watch them do their thing, and I'm like, "Man, I was, like, not that great when I was at that point in
yeah.
my career." It's just fun. So glad they're on my team and not elsewhere. Just saying.
Hey, um, all right. One last question for me is just what is some advice that you would say for either a woman, a young woman that's like, wanted to be in take your shoes, or um, a young creative that's, really trying to make their mark in a department and say, I want to be looked at as more than just a designer, or just some advice, for someone who's not necessarily trying to like, get the promotion or a title change, but just really wanting to be successful in sports. What are a couple attributes that you would say, really hone in on?
I would say, just a general rule is just to be a good teammate, to nurture relationships at any stage. You never know when somebody a year from now or 5 years from now may remember a conversation that you had with them, and maybe they can help you. There's a job opening where they're at, or they know somebody at another, place of business and can drop your name and say, "Oh, I remember talking to so and so. We had a really good conversation. They seemed like a really good person." Um, I think, uh, just knowing that regardless of what level you're at, your job is relevant and it matters to the organization. It doesn't matter if you're a coordinator, a director, a vice president, you have something to contribute. So,
mhm,
um, don't let titles scare you,
Yeah. So good.
or feel like you're being held back because of a title. Um, I think if you're looking to move up the corporate ladder, as we call it, I think learning the business side inside and out, and understanding what other areas need and how you can help. And then presenting it, say like, "Hey, I know that your objectives of X, Y, and Z for this season are this. Here's how creative can help you reach those goals," and frame it in a language that they understand. Um, is helpful. And then lastly, I know you asked about like women in this space. I think it's pretty apparent that we belong here. Um, we have just as much to contribute, and I think that if you are facing any type of hardship, just to remind yourself of that. Um, we have a lot to bring to the table, and if anybody ever has issues or questions about that experience and wants to reach out to me, please feel free. I have years of stories that I could share, mostly good, thankfully. So I'm happy to advocate and help anybody who may be facing some challenges just based on that alone. So,
Oh, okay.
um,
Based on that, which is all amazing stuff. I tend to just move on, but that's gold. But speaking of, you have an awesome boss. Sounds like you're an awesome boss. It's not the case for everyone. A lot of people
mhm.
are in a situation where they just aren't happy, and it's a lot of times just the manager. Advice to kind of improve that situation besides quit. Like what, because I feel like it's so easy to just say, "Oh, I need to start looking." Like a lot of times, I'm like, "No," and I'll admit it. It definitely was me, you know. But what are just some things that you would say if having issues with a boss and not like, being able to do what they want, or work on things that they want, is just what are some of the things that you would say to improve that relationship?
I mean, obviously that that can vary in terms of what those relationships look like, but I think just taking a step back from the situation and maybe removing yourself from the scenario and taking a look at what the issues are. Is it a communication issue? Is it a personality clash? Is it not meeting standards of a certain person? And then really kind of removing ego out of it and saying like, hey, okay, here's what I need to do. I need to adjust in this area. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes there's bosses out there who just aren't great.
Yeah.
In those instances, like, you just gotta find ways to do your job well. If you don't like your situation, I would say get out, but that's, coming from a place of privilege. If you need that money and you need that job, that's kinda hard
Yeah.
to just walk away from. So I think just finding the separation of job and self, like, I'm just here, I'm not my title. I'm a human being outside of this office. I'm gonna come in and do my job well. That's what
Yeah.
I can control. I can't control others and how they react or how they are. So,
Yeah.
trying to compartmentalize that, I guess. But I hope not many people are still facing those types of
Yeah.
situations.
I'll be honest with you, I think they are. And I think you've been very fortunate, which is cool. Like, I love hearing stories like that. Like, like, oh man, I'm in a good situation. I had this awesome boss. Like, it's there's like no there's nothing we could do about that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you inherit those things. But I would say what you just said is great, because you're saying basically don't quit, don't give up, look inside first, take and be mature enough to have that like emotional intelligence to say, you know what, let me step out and see what the real issue is, and address it. As a professional, right? Like, at the end of the day, we get to wear jeans and like cool shirts and hoodies. Like, creatives
Mhm.
always are like the cool department, but at the end of the day, we deal with the same professional stigmas and like management characteristics that everyone else does. We have to solve those. So I was just, yeah, that's great, that's good stuff, because I would second that, and also say, um just to kind of piggyback off what you said, I know there's a few strategies that I would implore as well, like, have a meeting outside the office. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
intimidating meeting someone behind a desk. Hey, can we grab coffee? Can we grab a beer? Hey, just um, asking. One of the most easiest things I always say is like, hey, give me the top three qualities of like your ideal employee, and they might say, I want you to be on time. I want you to leave on time, or whatever, stay late or whatever it is. I want you to email me, communication and blah, blah, blah. And you listen to that, you're like, oh, shit, dang, that's not even, has nothing to do with my skill, my ability. It's just things that you think are important that I don't value so much. And then you can make that determination if you want to, like you said, compartmentalize your feelings and say, you know what, I'll do that. I'll email you in the morning, say good morning, say I'm here, or whatever. Like, it's I always say this, everyone had a boss that showed him or her how to manage, and sometimes it's wrong or right. That's why I say you're fortunate. It sounds like you've had some really good leaders, and
Yeah.
you put that out. And sometimes it's the opposite. You get out of a toxic situation, and you're like, well, that's how I was managed, and
Yeah.
those type of things. So yeah, no, it's good. Thanks for sharing that, because those are, like I said, some of the things that I hope when people hear this podcast, they're like, okay, obviously these are creative people, but at the end of the day, they are high performers. And in order for them to do what they've done, they've had to really, go through some stuff. So I appreciate you extending an invitation to reach out to you on any of that. So please
Yeah, for
do,
sure.
guys. Ashley is definitely an open book, and she's very nice. Like you said, you want to work with nice people. So
I just
uh,
say be the teammate or leader that you would want to have. So,
ooh,
it's kind of my
that's good.
rule.
That's the golden rule, right?
Mhm.
I know we've hit you with some pretty hard hitting questions here that weren't necessarily on the
We
list of
got, dude.
questions, but you know why? Because like um, Ashley, you're one of the most respected people in our industry, and we're just rapping. So, we
Yeah.
think you have valuable insights, and that's why you know we kind of feel like you're a good person to bounce these questions off. So I
Keeping me
apologize.
on my toes. I love it.
We got a little hard hitting, but we're gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna end it kind of like kind of on a lighter note. So we like to end our podcast with a little creative hot seat, and we did not prep you for these. So you just say whatever the first thing is that comes to mind, and there's nothing controversial here. Um,
Unless you say something controversial.
and there's no wrong
Well,
answers unless we tell you it's wrong.
okay,
So are you ready?
let's do it.
Okay. So the creative hot seat. What's your favorite team besides the team you work for?
Um, University of Michigan football.
Mm.
Go blue.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
I mean,
Childhood
Detroit's in
team.
Michigan. Come on.
I know.
I
But,
grew up a Michigan fan, so
all
You know
right.
what?
easy answer.
One of the
Go
most
big blue.
one of the most iconic logos, I think, personally. Even though
Yeah,
it's
Block M.
so simple.
And helmets, football helmets. Maybe the
All right.
most iconic.
Next, are you a desk? Sorry. Are you your desk or office is it organized or messy? Like, what's your method of for madness? Or no, is that did I say that
If it's in line of sight, it's organized, but if you open drawers, it's madness.
right?
I
Love it.
love that.
That's good.
Now, do you know what's going on in those drawers, or you just throw things in there?
I couldn't even tell you. There's like stuff in there from my first year. Like
Yep.
it's just a collection of everything.
My favorite story on that is I had a Post-it up for like 10 years. It was like a Post-it on my phone because your phone nowadays, like some offices don't even have phones, but the phone goes with you. And I had this
Mhm.
Post-it that was like the extension, and that Post-it stayed there like my entire tenure.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Nice.
All right. Sponsorship asks you to make the logo bigger. What's your reaction?
I would say why?
Or what's your response? Sorry, what's your response?
Why?
Ooh, why?
I would say it's equal size with our mark, and if this is a co-partnership, then it should be similar balance. We don't want one to outweigh
Boom.
the other.
That's good.
Boom.
That's good. Can't argue with
I
that.
always tell sponsorship, and I don't recommend people do this, but as always, make the logo bigger. They want their logo bigger. I was like, well, if they want their logo bigger, they could buy their own damn billboard.
We
Doesn't
actually
have to
use
be
analytics
co-branded.
now. Some of the algorithms don't like when the logo's really big. They want more of the photo shown. So we actually have numbers that prove that. So we're equipped with statistics and data now.
Nice.
All
Yeah.
right, all right.
Ashley's
Here's a
like,
tough one.
actually, I have this in my pocket.
We'll
Data
go to
show.
our social team and be like, hey, can you pull those numbers, please? Thanks.
Funny.
Here's a tough one because you yourself may be guilty in using some of these, but what sports design gimmick or trope needs to go away?
Mm, are we still calling them edits? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't
I
think I've
feel
ever
so
called them
old.
edits myself.
I feel so old. Gosh.
I don't know what edits are.
I think this is just an industry-wide thing. I think that Team No Sleep is a sham, and you shouldn't try to live like that.
I'm on board with that.
Work-life balance. Trust me, when you get older, you're gonna wish you did it. You wish you didn't miss out on much. So if you're able to take a pause, take a pause.
I
Okay,
feel
I
like
guess
I've been on both ends of that because, when you're a young designer and you're coming up, like, and you have the energy
Yeah, and
and
some
the
of us,
momentum,
if you're the only person there, you kind of
it's
are locked into that
yeah.
mentality because you have no other choice. But if you
And
have the
it's hard to
choice,
stop yourself sometimes,
yeah,
when
you
you're at
get
that age.
accustomed to it. Yeah.
But I will say now that I'm old, I'm definitely 100% on board. I believe in, getting a full night of sleep, um, except leading up to Connect.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, and,
you can sleep after that.
yeah, and, yeah, that's I think that's great advice.
All right. Aside from your own team, what's one of your most favorite uniforms in all of sports?
In all of sports?
Or
Ooh.
whatever. I was gonna say iconic, but just whatever. What do you think? What uniform have you seen in the last few years that you're like, oh, that was really cool, or that shouldn't change?
I'm being such a homer right now with Detroit, but, like, the classic Old English D, like, the Detroit uniform
Yeah.
is
You
so
should be a
classic and
homer.
clean, but, I don't know, let's see.
No, you're right. And you
Go
know
I'm
what?
not gonna say I not saying this because Ross is on the call, but, like, the Dodgers, like, the classic home uni,
Oh,
the script font,
You just made his day. Look at that. He's gonna go find it. He's gonna go
the
find it.
LA lockup.
I
there
think you
you
have
go.
every. Oh
There
Lord,
you go.
here we go.
He's gotta show it off. There you go, look at that. Gorgeous.
Thanks, Ashley. I like
Speaking
that.
of gorgeous, Ross, your sweater, man, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
Oh, thank
he
you.
was talking to somebody in the Midwest. He knew he had to dress the part. It's a little
Yeah,
chilly
fall
today.
colors, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Super Bowl. The Lions are in the Super Bowl. Let's just say that. What's your pregame meal?
I think I'd be too nervous to eat, to be real with you.
Fair enough.
Coffee.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
same. All right, what's your go-to font? Maybe right now, not in life. Just I gotta design this quick. Make it look good.
Uh, oh, Avenir
Papyrus.
maybe. Yeah, oh, Comic Sans, absolutely, 100% of the
Oh
time.
no.
Bring it.
Oh Lord, there is a wrong answer apparently.
Yeah, I nailed it.
I gotta respect it though. You know what? Comic Sans is like you can use it ironically now. So
Yes.
um hoodie. Are you a hoodie person?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Pullover or zip up?
Quarter zip. Neither.
Oh,
Wow.
Throwing you a curveball.
that's a very corporate answer. That's like,
Yeah.
it's like
What is a quarter zip? Is that like
It zips, like, right here. That's it.
it's just it goes a quarter down. Like that's it.
it's not like a baseball, like a softball, baseball? No. Do they
Warm-ups
own
are
that?
like that, but, like, there's a lot of sideline gear that our coaches wear that are quarter zip, so,
Very like
Nice.
casual
yeah.
Friday. Yeah.
Golf course? Golf course. Do you golf? Do you golf? Does anybody golf?
No one wants to see me golf, trust me. My softball swing does not translate on the golf course, like, if you're standing to the side of me, you should probably have protective gear on because 'cause I'm gonna slice it right at your face.
You're like Charles Barkley. Oh no.
His swing probably is more beautiful than mine, let me tell you.
Okay,
It's pretty
last
bad.
one. Last one, and it's a very important question because creatives generally stay pretty caffeinated.
Mhm.
What is your go-to coffee order?
Nitro cold brew. Black.
Ooh, black. No
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
sweeteners.
pure gasoline.
Wow, respect.
Nice.
One
I
and
could
done. You don't
I
even
could
need
just
any more.
I could just see you at Starbucks. They're like, "Would you like any?" "No." "Do you want it?" "No."
They know me now when I go in,
They're like,
so,
Oh
"That's
my
the one."
god.
All
yeah.
right, hold on. I'm gonna add a question.
Okay.
Favorite like athlete of all time. You know mine. We talked about this earlier. Barry Sanders is I just love him. But yeah, favorite athlete and why?
I have so
Do
many
not say a Detroit person.
I grew up
What
around
do you
him.
mean? She has to.
I
Those are her
honestly, like, grew
teams.
up a huge Red Wings fan in the '90s, so, like, Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov,
Ooh,
Mike Vernon,
Like
Chris
Shanahan.
Draper, Darren
man.
McCarty, like, they had the Russian
Jesus.
5 back then,
Oh man.
the grind line,
Konstantinov.
like, yeah, Larionov, Konstantinov, Kozlov, Fedorov, and shoot, I can't think of the
Did
5th.
they win the cup in your time? Like in
Frolov.
your
Yeah, like 3, I think,
oh, that's okay.
during
Yeah.
my childhood, so I
Yeah.
would go to the parades and stuff with my dad and my
So
brother,
cool.
so
Oh,
lots
that's
of cool memories from the Red Wings.
so all
So
the old school Red Wings are your favorite athlete.
no, Steve Yzerman. He's definitely he's still there. He's working over there, so,
Legend.
um, yeah, just watching I watched almost every game as a kid.
Good
Um,
answer.
but this has been fun. This is good. We could stay on as I say, numerous a lot of episodes. We could stay on for a long time. We even hung out before this, so
Mhm.
I just appreciate you giving us so much of your time, valuable
Yeah.
time, and letting us into your brain and the way you think and having fun with us too. So yeah, please, if you don't follow Ashley on her channels or on LinkedIn, go do that. If you have any questions on leadership or really anything, honestly, as far as career and what the Detroit Lions are working on or doing, they're doing some really cool stuff and please connect with her. And also, just as a reminder, if you haven't registered for Connect 2024, it is it's available now. You can go to MLCconnect.com/registration and get up on it. You'll meet Ashley in person, of course, us two bozos, and get to see the awesome city of Detroit and honestly change your career personally. I really personally feel like that's uh that's how important the conference is, just to like all the things like Ashley was saying earlier about getting connected with your peers and having a sounding board and finding out what folks are doing and on a one-on-one level, not through a Zoom. Um but and it's fun. Also, I would just want to mention, if you haven't liked, comment, or subscribe, please do that stuff. But I would definitely say, more than anything, share the episode with a friend, someone that you think, if there's a couple topics we hit in here that you feel they need to hear. I always enjoy that when someone does that. I feel like they're thinking about me, and it's more than just a transactional relationship. It's a real relationship, and hey, I know you talked about this. They covered it. Take a listen. So yeah, please forward to a colleague. But yeah, other than that, guys, Rossi, Ashley, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you
Thanks,
guys in
guys.
Motown,
Yeah, I'll see you
July.
soon.
Thanks, Ash. We'll see you in July.
Alright, see ya.